So obviously you spend a lot of time teaching techniques, because obviously when you put out lessons to us people who watch and want to learn, you have kind of already perfected those techniques in order to, or even if it's not perfect, it is at least at the level where it's good enough to share and to educate someone. So as an educator yourself, how do you balance your time between, learning new techniques and, practicing yourself, and then also at the same time churning out new content every week? Because obviously there's, it could just be like a 10-minute video that you put out there, but then the hours that actually go behind that 10-minute video, no one actually knows. It's actually, I'm sure it's a lot of hard work. So the question here is, how do you balance your time between developing your own skills, practicing them, learning new stuff, but at the same time, educating others?
That's another really good question. And once again, I have to say that I have a pretty structured approach when it comes to that. I'm really organized. Somehow that's not really metal, but it kind of works for me. I do the same thing every single day. Right now, especially because there's not anything else to do. There are not even any studio appointments, live shows, all that stuff. I start out my day with a 1-hour practice routine that is only dedicated to getting better and developing the stuff that I want to work on. Because in the past, I was always mixing that stuff, making like deciding, okay, now I have 3 hours of time, now I'm playing guitar, but I was never really structuring the time effectively. So I was working on something, maybe on a video that I want to do, I have to practice that, and yeah, I also want to improve my legato playing, for example. I work on that a little bit, and then you work for 4 hours and you think, wow, I'm doing a great job, I'm putting in the hours. But the one thing that made a big change for me is really dedicating that 1 hour only to the techniques that or the theory approaches. Sometimes there are also great theory exercises that you can do. Spending 1 hour every day right after waking up on these topics. I work with 4 topics every day, divided into 15 minutes. And I can change those blocks all the time. For example, every week I can change the order or the exercises, the contents, or the blocks in general, if I want to work on something different. So that 1 hour is only dedicated to practicing, no free playing, no jamming, no writing, really just practicing. And after that, when I'm done with that and answering all the emails, I start recording videos. And sometimes you think a certain technique or an idea you have is ready for recording a video, and it isn't. And then it's going to be a long day. For example, today, it took me quite a long time to get down what I want to show, because I don't want to sell anything that I can't play and like cheat myself over something, or maybe play it much slower and much more basic than I want to do it, because I'm always an ego person as well. If I'm setting that goal for myself, I want to demonstrate that at this kind of tempo, it has to be like that, and I don't want to go with the half-assed solution of I can play that, I'll go with something different. So once I set up that thing, it has to be that way. And if it takes, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours to get that ready, then I will invest the time, but I will never separate that. I will never combine that with my practice time. So I want those things to be clearly separated, the things I want to get better at. And after that, I want to work on the videos. And that has worked pretty well, because sometimes you prepare a practical example for a video that you maybe won't need that again. Everything I discuss is helpful in a way. I don't want to discuss super abstract things that you will never end up using. But sometimes I worked on some complex finger picking stuff as well that never gets a ton of use, but I still want to discuss it sometimes. And some of those things I don't really need that much. So when you end up really only working on that stuff just for a video, and then you never use it again, that's kind of counterintuitive. So I always want to make sure to have that practice routine that is not directly linked to all the content and all the stuff that I want to record, just to get better. And then, as long as it takes, I'm going to try my best to get that take for the video that day. And I do that pretty much every single day. Although I'm just uploading 2 videos every day, I'm always a couple of videos ahead. I'm sure you know about. I'm not the first guy that's invented this approach of not uploading the video whenever you have it ready.
Yeah.
Because there will be some emergencies or whatever, or some appointments that you have. So I try to record every single day to kind of have that thing ready. So there's no like week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks without any videos because I couldn't record anything. I think that's not really good for a channel. People forget about you pretty fast, I think.
One week and then they're like, yeah, who are you?
Start again? No.
Yeah, I do get what you mean. Okay, well, so that's actually very good advice, you know, like to actually draw a line and not to mix that together, because I think a lot of us, I mean, I am kind of guilty of, you know, falling for that trap as well. So sometimes you just have to force yourself to practice and not do anything else, no backing tracks whatsoever, just the click and your guitar, and that's it, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a very good discipline to have. And then after that, maybe, you know, obviously other people have different ways of, you know, practicing, like, you know, Kiko Lorero, you know, he also has his own structure where, you know, the first 5 minutes you do this and the next 10 minutes you do that. And but, you know, I think the important thing here is to stick to like a very rigid structure, and then, you know, just go by it and not stray. And then, you know, it's like, oh, discovered something new, maybe I should write a song now, you know. And that's actually not very good for improving techniques. I mean, or at least that's what I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know both ways by now, and I can really tell you that this way works out better. And as soon as you do that, for the one thing that also really helped me is the really basic thing of practicing at the same time every day, because sometimes like I also try my best to go out running, but it's really hard to I don't have to force myself to do it, but I'm not as passionate about that as I'm about playing guitar. So sometimes you think, yeah, I have to exercise today. I'm doing it in the evening because I have to do my videos and all that stuff. And then it's the evening, and it took 2 hours longer than I thought it would take, and I'm too tired and I won't do it today. So when you practice right after getting up, there are no real excuses, because you can't say, well, I had so much to do during the day and I don't have time anymore and I'll do it tomorrow, because you just do it, you're done with it, and then you feel great about it, and you don't have to think at all. It's just, I get up, I do this, and that's the daily routine. Just like it turned into a real habit for me, like brushing my teeth. I also did that on tour last year. Since I don't party anymore and don't drink and all of that stuff, I just get up, take my guitar, start practicing while everybody's still asleep. Because I feel like I have to do it. I don't have to force myself to do it. It's just something that happens naturally, and the day would feel terrible and completely out of control for me if I don't do that in the morning. And it just feels great for me. I'm done with practicing at 5:30 or 6 a.m. every single day. And it feels great to actually start into the day when you know, okay, you already did that. You already spent some time to get better at the instrument. And that works really well for me. When you just do that for maybe a week or 2 weeks, and you also write down what you worked on, like having a little logbook, practice logbook, to document that, it will turn into a habit for pretty much anybody, I think, because you just get used to it. It's a daily thing. It's a routine. It might sound boring, but to me, I can't think of another way of doing it since I'm doing it, but, you know.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you know, it's first thing in the morning, no excuse, no delays, no nothing, you know. But what I find amazing is that you actually wake up 4:30 every morning to do it. So why 4:30 though? Like, it's like,
well, that's also a thing that didn't start like, okay, I always wake up at 11, now I'm gonna wake up at 4:30. That was also a gradual change. I think 1 year ago, where I felt like I'm losing too much of the day. I want to do more, but I don't want to work longer. And I had this great idea that nobody thought about before, I guess, like waking up early, then you have more hours you can actually put into work. But I started to get up at 7, at 6:30, at 6, and so on. And I think 4:30 or 4, sometimes I get up at 4, because now I'm already used to it, and most of the time I get up before my alarm. And the one basic reason really why I'm doing it is because you get so much more out of your day when I compare to what I got out of the day when I was getting up at 8 or 9, for example. Maybe I work the same amount of hours, but in the morning it's really great because I don't get any calls, I don't get any text messages, nobody's up at the time. And when I'm practicing and preparing the day and going through my emails and all of that stuff, I can just do that, and it just feels completely different for me. Because when you work in the afternoon, I always get distracted easily when I get a new email. I feel like, man, I have to respond to that right now. I forget it if I don't respond to that, and then you get a phone call. It's only going to take 5 minutes, and then it takes 30 minutes, and then it kind of gets a bit difficult. But for me, it's just so easy to work at that time and to be productive. And I end up working until 6 or 7 p.m. anyways, because I really like what I'm doing. But that's the only reason for the 4 or 4:30 thing. I just want to get more things done.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Zero distractions at all, because there's no one there to distract you at that time.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not rock and roll, but it works, at least for me. I don't know. Did you ever try?
Yeah, I do. Like, I think not for music, but for work. I used to get up at because when I used to work on my own as a freelancer, I had the same approach. I woke up at 6 sometimes to work, and because it was for exactly the same reason, 0 phone calls, 0 distractions. So then I could actually get a lot more done. In fact, productivity sometimes feels like it's doubled because you wake up early to do that, and it does. So that's why I think it makes a lot of sense when you say if it's the first thing in the morning, you have to get it done. There's no reason for any delay, and I find that you make absolute sense there. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that thing. So maybe I'll try not 4:30, but maybe a bit earlier tomorrow, and then try to see how it goes.
As I said, it also wasn't like a radical conscious decision like 4:30 is the time, I'm gonna do it from tomorrow on. It was just earlier and earlier, and I started really liking it. So I just got up earlier and earlier, but I guess 3 is a bit too extreme on 3:30. That's where it gets really weird, and 4:30 is still kind of
acceptable.
Okay. Yeah, it's acceptable. I think it's the time I used to get home from partying like 3 or 4 years ago. Now it's the time where I start working, and that works out much better.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, that's good to know, and thanks for sharing that. So then we talked a lot about practicing. So obviously, as an educator yourself and as an active musician, you constantly learn new techniques, write new songs, and things like that. So because we learn so many techniques, and some techniques really require us to spend time to practice and learn. And over some time, what I realized as a player is that there are some techniques that after a while, if you don't use them, you just lose them completely. And then after that, you have to kind of relearn everything. So in your case, do you have any advice for anyone who doesn't want to lose, whatever that, he or she has spent, say, 40, 50 hours practicing on, because that has happened to me as well. So I'm sure if that happened to me, I'm sure that has happened to a lot of other people, where, we spend weeks practicing a technique, we track the song, record the video. After that, we lose all of it, which is a waste, So do you have any advice or any kind of structure in place to kind of prevent that from happening?
I mean, for me, it's exactly the same thing. Actually, the thing that helped me the most is actually deciding what those things are that I constantly need for studio jobs or session jobs, for example. What are the things that I really like to use and that I really love as a player? And as soon as I found those things that I really like, I just make sure to include them in, I mean, you can't force all that stuff into a song. Like every song I'm going to write has to include 8-finger tapping and sweep picking. So I never lose that kind of technique. But I do tend to pick those topics for the practice routine for sure, and also for the videos to feature them. But one thing that I had that's really crazy is not losing or not getting worse and worse at a specific technique, but that mid-tempo section for picking, and I think around 120 or 130, 140 beats per minute with 16th notes is something that I ignored for a really, really long time, because for live shows I was always warming up with super fast picking runs. Like I have half an hour now, I have to get in shape, I have to warm up my right hand, so of course I'm gonna play as fast as possible. And then sometimes there was this kind of lick that wasn't slow, but it wasn't fast. It was at this mid-tempo section at 120, 130 beats per minute, and I had a really hard time playing it. And I thought, man, as I warmed up like for an hour, and I don't know what happened. Maybe it's because the third or fourth song already, and I'm not warmed up anymore. But the thing that I discovered about it is that I never actually work on that. I either go really slow to make sure I'm playing it correctly, or I go really fast because I want to play it faster. And I kind of really ignored that really important mid-tempo zone, and you need constant 16th notes at 120 beats per minute much more often than at double the tempo. You just need that all the time. So that's something that I discovered that that I really need to work on more. And since I'm doing that, I don't have that feeling anymore that I sometimes feel like it kind of feels weird. I should work on that more. So for me, it never really happened with a certain technique that I come back to. Like today I recorded a lesson about 8-finger tapping, and I didn't do that for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months. I haven't worked on that at all. And it came, I need some time. As I said, it took some hours today to get done what I wanted to do. It took some time, but I got it back to the level that I wanted to perform at. So it never so far happened with like completely big topic, but it did happen with that kind of thing, with picking and playing in general, like really playing in time, staying relaxed at mid tempos. So that's something that I really discovered for myself, and that I try to tell every single student, because it's one of my biggest practice mistakes ever. And it's really embarrassing when you play that, especially when you're playing live, you're playing all that fast stuff. Like it's easy because you practice that for the tour for 1 hour, but your overall technique doesn't get better when you just practice the fast and the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of weird discovery that I made for myself. Maybe it helps somebody else. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird.
I'm sure it makes a lot of sense, because not all songs are at those high tempos, and like you said, there's a higher chance of a song being at that, like, 120, 130, 135 sort of range, especially when it comes to metal as well. I do realize that a lot of songs are around that sort of region, so it makes a lot of sense to spend more time, especially if there's like a lick that you like particularly or whatever. It's always good to practice I think it would be helpful to practice at that sort of tempo, and it makes absolute sense. Well, thanks. I'm sure that would be a very useful piece of advice for those who will be watching this episode here.
I hope so.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing all that. So moving on to the next part of our session here today, I wanted to talk to you about your website, which is Bernth.at, and also your Patreon. So what would you